Subscribe to the channel right now, hit that like button, and get ready to comment. Pay close attention. The billionaire was in the elevator with his fiancée when the doors opened and his ex walked in, holding his son. Before we begin, leave a comment telling us which city you are watching from, and once the story is over, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. The elevator encounter. The glass towers of downtown Seattle glistened under the afternoon sun as Evelyn Harper adjusted her navy blue blazer and checked her watch. The tech conference was already buzzing with energy on the 42nd floor, and she was arriving exactly on time. At 28, she had learned that punctuality was just another way to demand respect in a world that still questioned women in tech. "Come on, baby," she whispered to the toddler in her arms, smoothing down his unruly brown hair, which seemed to stick up no matter what she did. Theo, at 20 months old, was the perfect mix of curiosity and mischief, his bright green eyes taking in everything around him with the intensity of someone much older. Evelyn pressed the elevator button, her heart steady despite the importance of today's presentation. She had built her cybersecurity software company from scratch, and tonight's keynote would cement her position as one of the industry's most innovative minds. She no longer needed anyone's validation. She had proven herself through sleepless nights, brilliant code, and sheer determination. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, revealing two figures already inside. Evelyn stepped forward before her brain could process what her eyes were seeing. Landon Mitchell stood against the back wall, his tall figure impeccable in a charcoal suit that was clearly tailored to perfection. His dark hair was slightly longer than she remembered, and those piercing green eyes, which had once seen straight through her defenses, were now wide open, hovering somewhere between shock and recognition. Next to him stood a statuesque blonde woman in a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Time seemed to crystallize in that small, confined space. Evelyn felt her breath hitch, but she forced herself to step inside, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She had faced boardrooms full of skeptical investors and hostile competitors. She could certainly handle 2.5 minutes in an elevator with her past. "Evelyn," Landon's voice was barely a whisper, and she could hear the same slight rasp that used to make her stomach flutter when he whispered her name in the dark. "Landon." She kept her voice steady, professional. "Victoria," she nodded to the woman beside him, recognizing her from countless society pages and tech industry magazines. Victoria Steele offered a polite smile, but her sharp blue eyes were assessing, clearly trying to place why this woman with a baby triggered such a visceral reaction in her fiancé. Theo chose that moment to babble something incomprehensible, but decidedly cheerful, reaching a small hand toward the shiny buttons of Evelyn's blazer. The innocent sound seemed to break whatever spell had fallen over the elevator. Landon's gaze dropped to the child in her arms, and Evelyn watched as understanding dawned on his features. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same unruly hair, the same determined jaw, the same bright eyes that seemed to see everything. "He is," Landon began, but the words seemed to stick in his throat. "Beautiful," Victoria finished, though her voice had taken on a strange, distant quality. "How old is he?" 20 months, Evelyn replied, which was close enough to the truth without revealing the exact timeline that would make everything painfully obvious. But Landon was brilliant. He had always been brilliant, and she could practically see him doing the math. His face went pale, then flushed, and his hands clenched at his sides. The elevator continued its smooth ascent, every floor bringing them closer to a moment when they would have to part ways again, when this impossible reunion would end and real life would resume. But right now, in this suspended moment, everything felt possible and impossible at the same time. Theo, oblivious to the tension crackling around him, dropped his favorite toy. A small wooden airplane Evelyn had bought him last week. It clattered to the floor and slid toward Landon's polished shoes. Without thinking, Landon crouched down and picked up the toy, his movements careful and deliberate. When he straightened up and offered it back to Theo, the boy reached out with both hands, grinning with the unbridled joy only children possess. For just a moment, Landon's fingers brushed Evelyn's as she helped guide the toy back into Theo's grip. The contact was electric, sending a familiar heat shooting up her arm and straight to her chest, where her heart was beating far too fast. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice softer than she intended. The elevator chimed again. Floor 40, 41, 42. Victoria cleared her throat delicately. "Darling, we should—" The doors slid open with mechanical precision, revealing the bustling conference space beyond. People in expensive suits mingled with champagne flutes and business cards, their conversations creating a hum of ambient noise that seemed to belong to a completely different world. Evelyn moved toward the exit, then stopped. Some impulses were too strong to ignore, and some moments demanded honesty, no matter how messy the consequences. She turned to face Landon, whose green eyes were still fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel like they were the only two people in the world. "His name is Theo," she said quietly, but loud enough for him to hear over the conference noise. Theo Mitchell Harper. The middle name hit Landon like a physical blow. His mouth parted slightly, but no words came out. Victoria's champagne glass trembled in her perfectly manicured hand. Evelyn didn't wait for a response. She walked out of the elevator, head held high, and her son safe in her arms, leaving behind a silence so profound it seemed to echo long after the doors closed. But as she walked toward the registration desk, she could feel Landon's gaze following her, and she knew with absolute certainty that their story was far from over. The confrontation, the conference reception buzzed around Evelyn like white noise as she tried to focus on the conversation with potential investors. Theo sat contentedly in his high chair beside her, occasionally clapping when the ambient chatter got particularly animated. She had mastered the art of professional networking while managing motherhood, but tonight felt different. Every few minutes, she found herself scanning the crowd, her pulse quickening every time she caught a glimpse of dark hair or a tall silhouette. "Impressive. Your decryption protocols are revolutionary," said David Chan, a venture capitalist from San Francisco. "We'd love to discuss funding for your next development phase." Evelyn smiled and handed him her business card. But her attention wavered when she spotted Victoria Steele near the bar, her blonde hair catching the light as she spoke animatedly into her phone. There was no sign of Landon. "Mama," Theo babbled, holding up a piece of the organic snack she had packed for him. His green eyes shone with innocent joy, completely unaware that his entire world might be about to change. "That's right, baby," she murmured, smoothing his hair. "You're such a good boy." 20 minutes later, she excused herself from the networking circle and headed for the ladies' room, needing a moment to collect her thoughts. The hallway was quieter, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a stunning view of Elliott Bay. She was adjusting Theo's position in her arms when she heard footsteps behind her. "Evelyn!" She turned slowly, her heart already recognizing the voice before her eyes confirmed what she knew. Landon stood a few feet away, his usually perfect composure cracked at the edges. His tie was slightly loosened, and she could see the tension in his jaw. "Where is Victoria?" she asked, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Taking calls, planning damage control for whatever story the media might spin about tonight." He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "I needed to talk to you alone." Theo chose that moment to reach out toward Landon, his small hand opening and closing in the universal baby gesture for pick me up. Evelyn felt her chest tighten at the instinctive way her son seemed drawn to this man he had never met. "He doesn't know you," she said quietly, more to herself than to Landon. But he's mine. It wasn't a question. Landon's voice was rough with emotion. Those eyes, the way he holds his head. God, Evelyn, why didn't you tell me? Didn't. She shifted Theo to her other hip, buying time. Because you made it clear your future didn't include me. You were building an empire, remember? No distractions, no complications. You were never a distraction. The words came out fierce, almost angry. You were everything. I still am. The confession hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they could cross. Evelyn felt the familiar pull of his intensity, the way he had always been able to make her feel like the center of the universe with just his words. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't say things like that now, not when you're wearing another woman's engagement ring. Landon looked down at his hand, as if he had forgotten the platinum band was there. When he looked back up, his expression was pained. Victoria and I, it's complicated. Seems pretty simple to me. Evelyn straightened her shoulders. You're getting married. Congratulations. I don't love her. The words came out raw and unfiltered. I thought it would be enough to build a life with someone who understood the business, who fit into that world. But seeing you tonight, Evelyn, I never stopped loving you. Theo started to fuss, sensing the emotional currents even if he couldn't understand them. Evelyn rocked him gently, using the familiar motion to center herself. Love isn't enough, Landon. We proved that 2.5 years ago. We were different people then. Scared, stubborn kids who thought we had to choose between love and ambition. He moved close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. Look what you've achieved. You built something incredible. You became everything you wanted to be. And I built an empire, but I forgot what I was building it for. You built it for Victoria's world, she said. For society galas and merger announcements and perfectly orchestrated photo ops. No. His voice was firm. I built it thinking it would fill the space you left. But nothing could do that, Evelyn. Nothing. Theo reached out again, this time managing to grab a fistful of Landon's tie. Instead of pulling away, Landon carefully extracted his son's tiny fingers, his touch gentle and reverent. Can I? He gestured toward Theo, his meaning clear. Evelyn hesitated. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous territory, that letting Landon hold his son would only complicate an already impossible situation. But Theo was looking at Landon with such open curiosity, and there was something heartbreaking in the careful hope in Landon's expression. He's not used to strangers, she warned. But she was already transferring Theo into Landon's arms. Landon held his son as if he were made of spun glass, his large hands surprisingly sure and gentle. Theo studied his father's face with the intense concentration babies reserved for new discoveries. Then he smiled, a real, delighted smile that lit up his whole face. Hi, little guy, Landon whispered, voice thick with emotion. I'm your dad. The words broke something inside Evelyn's chest. She watched as Landon's entire body seemed to relax for the first time since she'd met him, as if he had been holding his breath for years and could finally exhale. This was what she had been afraid of. Not that Landon would reject Theo, but that he would love him instantly and completely, making it impossible for her to protect her son from the inevitable complications. He likes you, she said unnecessarily, because Theo was now patting Landon's cheek with obvious fascination. He's perfect. Landon's voice was filled with wonder. Absolutely perfect. How do you do it? How do you work and travel and manage everything alone? Because I had to. The words came out sharper than she intended. Because when I found out I was pregnant, I was alone. Because you never called, never reached out, never gave me a reason to think you'd want to know. I called. The quiet admission made her freeze. Every day for the first month, you blocked my number. The memory rushed back, her pain and pride demanding a clean break, her finger hovering over the block button on her phone. I needed space to figure things out. I know, and I should have tried harder. I should have fought for us instead of respecting your walls. He looked down at Theo, who was now playing with the buttons of his shirt. But I'm here now, Evelyn. However complicated it is, however messy, I'm here now. The sound of heels clicking against marble interrupted them. Victoria appeared around the corner, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes sharp with assessment. "There you are," she said to Landon, though her gaze went significantly to the baby in his arms. "The keynote is about to start. We should take our seats." Landon's jaw tightened, but he carefully transferred Theo back to Evelyn. Their hands brushed again during the exchange, and this time neither of them pulled away quickly. "This isn't over," he said quietly. The words meant only for her. Yes, it is. But even as she said it, Evelyn could feel the lie in her bones. It has to be. She walked away before he could respond, her heels echoing in the corridor as she carried her son back to a life that suddenly felt like it was built on quicksand. The sleepless night, the keynote presentation went flawlessly, but Evelyn barely remembered giving it. She stood on stage, delivering her carefully rehearsed speech about the future of cybersecurity, while her mind replayed every moment in that hallway. The way Landon had held Theo with such reverence, the raw honesty in his voice when he admitted to calling her, the look in his eyes when he said he never stopped loving her. Now, 2 hours later, she sat in her hotel room, overlooking the Seattle waterfront. Theo was finally asleep in his travel crib after a night that had overstimulated them both. She had changed into comfortable yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her presentation armor replaced by the soft clothes that reminded her she was a mother first, everything else second. Her phone vibrated against the marble nightstand. An unknown Seattle number. "Hello, it's me." Landon's voice was softer over the phone, more intimate somehow. "I got your number from the conference directory. I hope that's okay." Evelyn closed her eyes and leaned back against the headboard. "It's late, Landon." "I know, I couldn't sleep. Victoria is in her own room, planning the engagement party we're supposed to have next month." His laugh was bitter. "She's choosing flowers for a wedding that should never happen." "Then don't let it happen." The words escaped her before she could stop them. "It's not that simple. Her father's company is our biggest investor. Breaking the engagement doesn't just end our relationship. It could destroy everything I've built." Evelyn felt a familiar pang of disappointment. "So it is about money." "No, no!" His voice was fierce. "It's about 20,000 people who work for companies under my umbrella. It's about innovations that could change the world, about responsibilities I can't just run away from. But Evelyn, seeing you tonight, holding our son, nothing else matters in comparison to that." She stood up and walked to the window, watching the city lights reflecting on the water. "Our son has been fine without you for 20 months. He doesn't need complications. Maybe not, but I need him, and I need you." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "Need and want are different things, Landon. You want the fantasy of us, the idea of a ready-made family that fits into your perfect life. But the reality is messier. Reality is Theo crying at 3 a.m. with an ear infection. Reality is business trips where I have to choose between my career and being present for every milestone. Reality is, can I see you tomorrow?" The question interrupted her carefully constructed argument. "What? Tomorrow? Can I see you and Theo? Not at a conference, not with Victoria hovering. Just us." Evelyn pressed her forehead against the cool glass. "I fly back to Portland in the morning. Then I'll come to Portland." "Landon, one day, Evelyn. Give me one day to prove I'm not the same man who let you go before. Give me a chance to be Theo's father." She thought about the way Theo had reached for him, the instant connection that seemed to transcend genetics. Her son deserved the chance to know his father, didn't he? Even if it complicated everything. "One day," she found herself saying, "but I have rules. Anything. This isn't about us. It's about Theo. If you want to be part of his life, it has to be consistent. No popping in when it's convenient and disappearing when it gets hard. Understood? Understood. And Victoria can't know. Not yet. Not until you figure out what you really want. There was a long pause. She already suspects. She suspects Theo is mine. She's not stupid, Evelyn. She saw the way I looked at him, the way he looks like me. She's been making calls all night trying to dig up information on you. A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. Victoria Steele had the resources and connections to make Evelyn's life very complicated if she chose to. What kind of information? Financial records of your company, investor lists, client contracts. She's looking for leverage. Leverage for what? To ensure you stay out of our lives. Permanently. Evelyn sank into the chair by the window, feeling suddenly exhausted. Maybe she's right. Maybe I should. Don't you dare! Landon's voice was sharp. Don't let her scare you. I won't let her hurt you or Theo. How can you protect us when you can't even break up with her? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Evelyn could hear background traffic on his end, the sounds of the city that never quite slept. I'm working on it, he said finally. There are contracts, legal obligations, board meetings that have to happen. But I'm working on it. How long? I don't know. Weeks, maybe month. That's too long. Evelyn's voice was firm. I won't let Theo get attached to someone who might disappear again. I won't get attached either. You're already attached. His voice was soft, but sure. I could see it tonight, the way you looked at me when I held him. You felt it too, didn't you? That rightness. Like we were always meant to be a family. She had felt it. That was the problem. For just a moment, watching Landon hold their son, she had seen a future she had convinced herself was impossible. A future where Theo had both parents, where she didn't have to carry every burden alone, where love was enough to overcome practical obstacles. But love hadn't been enough before. Text me your address, Landon said. I'll drive down tomorrow morning. Evelyn, please, let me try to be the man you both deserve. Evelyn looked at Theo's crib, where her son slept peacefully, trusting her completely to make the right decisions for both of them. The weight of that responsibility had never felt heavier. Okay, she whispered. But if you hurt him, if you make promises you can't keep, I will make sure you never see him again. I understand. You do it because this isn't a game, Landon. We're talking about my son's heart. He's been through enough upheaval in his short life. What do you mean? Evelyn hesitated, then decided he deserved the truth. I was sick when he was born. Really sick. Pregnancy complications that lasted for months. Theo spent his first few weeks thinking his grandmother was his mother because I was in and out of the hospital so much. Evelyn, his voice was stricken. Why didn't you call me and say what? Hi, remember me? The woman you couldn't commit to? Well, surprise, you have a son and I might die. So could you rearrange your empire-building schedule to help raise him? Yes, exactly that. The simple answer caught her off guard. You would have come. I would have left everything. Hospital vigils, midnight feedings, diaper changes, doctor appointments, everything. I would have been there for everything. Tears pricked her eyes, and she was grateful he couldn't see them. Well, it's too late for that now. It's not too late for tomorrow. She closed her eyes, feeling the familiar tug-of-war between hope and self-preservation. Tomorrow is just one day. Tomorrow is a start. After hanging up, Evelyn sat in the dark hotel room for a long time, listening to Theo's soft breathing and watching the city lights blur through her tears. She had built a good life for them, a safe life. Tomorrow, she was about to risk all of that for a man who was still engaged to someone else. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Landon had whispered, "Hi, little guy," to their son, as if he had been waiting for that moment his entire life. The day of connection, the doorbell rang at exactly 9 a.m., and Evelyn's heart jumped despite her attempts to stay calm. She had spent the morning cleaning her already spotless townhouse in the Pearl District of Portland, changing her outfit twice, and rehearsing conversations that would probably never happen. Theo was sitting in his high chair, happily smearing banana on his tray, wearing the navy polo shirt she had chosen because it brought out his eyes. Through the peephole, she could see Landon standing on her front porch, looking unexpectedly nervous. The polished conference attire was gone. Instead, he wore dark jeans and a gray sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. In his hands, he carried what looked like a gift bag. "Da-da-da," Theo babbled from the kitchen, the nonsense syllables hitting Evelyn like a punch to the chest. She opened the door, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. In the morning light, she could see the exhaustion around Landon's eyes, as if he hadn't slept any better than she had. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." She stepped aside to let him in, hyper-aware of how domestic this felt, how dangerous. "He just finished breakfast. Fair warning. He's in the mood to test gravity with everything he can grab." Landon grinned, his first real smile since yesterday, and followed her into the open-concept living space. Evelyn's home was warm and inviting, full of natural light and carefully chosen pieces that spoke of comfort rather than ostentation. Children's books were scattered on the coffee table, and a basket of toys sat in the corner by a wall of built-in bookshelves. "This is beautiful," he said, taking in the space. "It feels like home." "It is." There was a protective edge to her voice she couldn't quite suppress. Theo spotted the newcomer and immediately started bouncing in his high chair, arms outstretched, face lighting up with recognition. The enthusiastic greeting clearly surprised Evelyn. Her son was usually wary of strangers. "Hey, buddy," Landon said, approaching slowly. "Remember me?" "Bah, bah," Theo responded, clapping his sticky hands. "I brought you something." Landon held up the gift bag, then looked at Evelyn for permission. "Is it okay?" She nodded, curious despite herself. Landon reached into the bag and pulled out a beautifully crafted wooden train. Not the cheap plastic kind sold in big box stores, but hand-carved pieces that looked like heirloom toys. "I know he's still young for it," Landon said, suddenly insecure. "But I don't know what a 20-month-old likes." "He loves trains," Evelyn said softly, watching Theo's eyes go wide with excitement. "How did you know?" "A guess." But his smile suggested it was more than that. "Can I take him out?" Evelyn nodded again and watched as Landon carefully unbuckled Theo from his high chair. Her son went willingly, patting Landon's shoulder with banana-sticky hands and babbling a stream of nonsense that sounded almost conversational. "Let's get you cleaned up first, little guy," Landon said, carrying Theo to the sink. "Evelyn, do you have a washcloth?" The scene was so naturally domestic, it made Evelyn's chest tight. Landon washed Theo's hands and face with efficiency, as if he had done it hundreds of times before. Theo submitted to the cleaning with unusual patience, studying his father's face with intense concentration. "There we go. Much better." Landon carried Theo to the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his son in his lap. "Now, let's look at these trains." For the next hour, Evelyn watched something magical unfold. Landon's entire demeanor transformed as he played with Theo. The guarded businessman vanished, replaced by someone patient, silly, and completely dedicated to making a toddler laugh. He built elaborate train tracks across her hardwood floors, complete with sound effects and dramatic crashes that made Theo giggle uncontrollably. "He's never this taken with strangers," Evelyn said, sitting on the sofa with her coffee. "Usually he needs time to warm up to people. Maybe I'm not a stranger to him," Landon replied, helping Theo stack wooden blocks into an increasingly precarious tower. "Maybe some connections are just natural." The tower fell with a satisfying crash, and Theo clapped with delight before immediately starting to rebuild. "Persistent," Landon observed. "I wonder where he gets that from." "Definitely not me," Evelyn said dryly, earning a laugh from Landon that made her stomach flutter in ways she had almost forgotten. Her phone buzzed with the text message. The name on the screen made her blood freeze. Victoria Steele. We need to talk. About the baby. Portland. ASAP. Evelyn's face must have shown her panic, because Landon immediately looked up from the trains. What is it? She showed him the phone. His jaw tightened as he read the message, and she watched his protective instincts kick in. She can't just show up here, he said, voice low and fierce. This is your home. She's resourceful. If she wants to find me, she'll find me. Evelyn set the phone aside with shaking hands. Maybe it's better to get this over with. No. Landon carefully moved Theo to his playmat and stood up. I won't let her bully you. You're in no position to stop her, Landon. You're still engaged to her. The reminder hit its mark. Landon ran a hand through his hair, looking more frustrated than she had ever seen him. I've been trying to find a way out that doesn't destroy everything I've built, but she's not making it easy. Every conversation we have, she finds new ways to remind me what I'd be giving up. Maybe you should listen to her. The words came out more bitter than Evelyn intended. Maybe a ready-made family isn't worth losing your empire. Don't say that. Landon knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. Don't you dare doubt what this means to me. Evelyn, I would give up everything, every company, every dollar, every connection to be with you and Theo. The only reason I'm trying to find another way is because I want to be able to provide for both of you, to give Theo every advantage. He doesn't need advantages. He needs stability. He needs parents who choose him over everything else. Then let me choose him. Let me choose you both. Theo chose that moment to crawl over to them, pulling himself up on Landon's leg with a determined expression. Without hesitation, Landon picked him up, and Theo immediately snuggled against his chest with a contentment that made Evelyn's heart ache. Look at him, Landon whispered. He knows Evelyn. Somehow he knows I'm his dad. She could see it too. The way Theo relaxed in Landon's hold, the way he kept touching Landon's face as if memorizing it. Her independent, cautious child had never bonded with anyone this quickly, not even with his own father. 2 hours, she said, checking her phone again. Victoria will be here in 2 hours, and she's going to try to tear apart everything good about today. Then let's not waste the time we have. Landon stood up, still holding Theo. Show me everything. His room, his favorite books, his bedtime routine. Show me how to be his dad. The next 90 minutes passed in a blur of ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. Landon changed his first diaper with surprising competence, read Goodnight Moon with theatrical flair that made Theo belly laugh, and learned that his son's favorite game was peekaboo, played with increasingly elaborate hiding spots. But as the clock ticked closer to Victoria's arrival, the tension crept back into the room like an approaching storm. I should go, Landon said reluctantly, watching Theo toddle around the living room. I don't want to make this harder for you. Running won't change anything. Evelyn's voice was steadier than she felt. She's coming here because she knows about Theo, which means she's already made up her mind about what she wants to do with that information. What do you think she wants? Before Evelyn could answer, the doorbell rang. They both froze, and Theo looked up from his toys with curious eyes. I guess we're about to find out, Evelyn said, smoothing her sweater and walking toward the door that would either open to her future or destroy it completely. The offer and the threat, Victoria Steele stood on Evelyn's doorstep like a designer-clad storm cloud. Her platinum blonde hair was perfectly coiffed, despite the 2-hour drive from Seattle. She wore a cream-colored coat that likely cost more than most people's cars, and her blue eyes were sharp with calculated assessment as they swept over Evelyn's more casual attire. Evelyn, she said. Her voice was crisp, professional. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I didn't agree to anything, Evelyn replied, but she stepped aside to let Victoria in. Behind her, she could hear Theo's happy babbling and the sound of wooden trains rolling on hardwood floors. Victoria's gaze immediately found Landon, who had risen from the floor where he'd been playing with Theo. The sight of her fiancé in domestic bliss with another woman and child created a crack in her composed facade, so brief that anyone less observant might have missed it. "Darling," she said to Landon, her tone carrying just a hint of steel beneath the endearment. "I thought you were handling business meetings in Portland today." "Change of plans," he replied, moving protectively closer to where Theo was still playing, oblivious to the tension crackling in the room. Victoria's attention zeroed in on the toddler, and Evelyn watched her take in every detail. The dark, unruly hair, the green eyes, the determined jaw that was unmistakably Mitchell. When Theo looked up and grinned at the new visitor with his father's charming smile, Victoria's mask slipped completely. "He's beautiful," she said, and for a moment her voice carried genuine emotion. "How old did you say he was?" 20 months, Evelyn answered carefully. 20 months. Victoria's smile was razor sharp, which would make him conceived around, "When did you two break up?" "February 2023. The mathematical precision of the question hung in the air like an accusation. Evelyn felt her protective instincts surge. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact." Victoria settled gracefully into the armchair opposite the sofa, crossing her legs with deliberate elegance. "Your son is Landon's child. The resemblance is undeniable, and the timeline fits perfectly." Landon stepped forward, moving to stand beside Evelyn, his presence both comforting and worrying. "Victoria, this isn't necessary." "Oh, it certainly is." Victoria's laugh was crystalline and cold. "You see, Evelyn, I've done my research. Your company, while innovative, is still relatively small. Your investors are cautious, your contracts are project-based, and your financial stability relies entirely on maintaining your reputation in a very competitive field." The implied threat was unmistakable. Evelyn felt ice form in her stomach, but she kept her voice steady. And I could destroy all of that with a few well-placed phone calls." Victoria examined her perfectly manicured nails. "Tech is such an insular industry, isn't it? Word travels fast when someone's professional judgment is called into question." "You're threatening her." Landon's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm protecting our future," Victoria corrected. "The future we planned, the merger we announced, the life we've built together. I won't let a one-night stand of nostalgia destroy everything we've worked for." Evelyn's anger finally overrode her caution. "A one-night stand? Is that what you think this is?" "It's not." Victoria's smile was predatory. "Landon tells me your relationship ended badly years ago. He moved on. He built an empire. He found someone who complements his ambitions, and now you conveniently reappear with a child, hoping to cash in on his success." Evelyn's voice was low but fierce. "Get out of my house, right now!" "I'm afraid I'm not finished." Victoria pulled a tablet from her bag and swiped to open a document. "I've prepared a proposal that I think you'll find quite generous." She turned the screen toward Evelyn, who found herself staring at what looked like a legal contract. $5 million, Victoria said conversationally. "In exchange for your agreement to relocate, perhaps back to your home state of Colorado, and to limit Landon's contact with the child to occasional supervised visits. Sole custody remains yours, of course." The blood drained from Evelyn's face. "You want to pay me to disappear?" "I want to pay you to be reasonable. Landon has responsibilities, a company to run, a wedding to plan. He can't be distracted playing house with someone from his past." Theo, sensing the shift in energy, started to fuss. Landon immediately moved to comfort him, picking his son up into his arms with practiced ease. The sight of them together seemed to drive Victoria's desperation to new heights. "He'll get bored," she said, her voice turning sharper. "Men like Landon always do. The novelty of fatherhood will wear off, and he'll resent the burden you've placed on him. Better to take the money now, while he's still feeling sentimental. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here," Landon said, his voice carrying an authority that made even Victoria pause. "And stop talking about my son like he's a problem to be solved. He is my son." Victoria's composure finally cracked completely. "You've known about this child for exactly 24 hours, and you're ready to throw away everything we've built together." "What we've built is a business arrangement," Landon replied, his honesty brutal in its simplicity. "What I have with Evelyn and Theo, that's a family." Victoria stood up abruptly, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood as she began to pace. "A family? You barely know this woman anymore. People change, Landon. The girl you dated in college isn't the same person standing here today." "You're right," Evelyn said quietly, finding her voice again. "I'm not the same person I was then. I'm stronger now, more independent. I've built my own life, my own success. I don't need Landon's money, or his name, or his protection." She turned to face Victoria directly, her chin lifted with quiet dignity. "But you're wrong about one thing. I would never take money to keep my son away from his father. Not 5 million, not 50 million. Theo deserves to know who he is and where he comes from." "How noble," Victoria sneered. "And what happens when the media finds out? When the gossip sites start running stories about Landon Mitchell's secret love child? When our investors start questioning his judgment and stability? Then they'll know the truth," Landon said, settling Theo more comfortably in his arms. "That I am a man who takes responsibility for his actions and loves his family." "Your family?" Victoria's voice rose to a pitch that made Theo whimper. "I am your family. We are getting married in 3 months. We have planned a life together." "We planned a merger," Landon corrected. "We never planned a family." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. For a moment, her perfectly crafted mask dropped completely, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. "I could have given you children," she whispered. "But you didn't want them. You made that clear from the start. Children would complicate your career, interfere with your social obligations." Landon's voice was gentle but firm. "There's nothing wrong with that choice, Victoria. But it's not the choice I want anymore." Victoria stared at him for a long moment, then at Evelyn, then at Theo, who was now reaching for a toy train that had rolled under the coffee table. When she spoke again, her voice was controlled, but carried an undercurrent of steel. "I won't make this easy for you," she told them both. "The engagement announcement has been made. The board expects this merger. If you think you can just walk away without consequences, you're both more naive than I thought." "What kind of consequences?" Evelyn asked, though she dreaded the answer. Victoria's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Did you know that Steel Industries holds the patents for 3 of the security protocols your little startup uses? Did you know that our legal team has been looking for reasons to challenge those licensing agreements?" The threat was clear and devastating. Evelyn's company relied on those protocols. Losing access to them would essentially destroy her business overnight. "You can't do that," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I can do whatever is necessary to protect my interests." Victoria gathered her bag and coat, preparing to leave. "You have 48 hours to consider my offer. After that, I will assume you have chosen to fight this battle, and I promise you both, you will regret that choice." She was halfway to the door when Theo suddenly called out, "Mama!" His little arms reached for Evelyn, and there was something so trusting, so innocent in the gesture, that it stopped Victoria in her tracks. For just a moment, Evelyn thought she saw longing in the other woman's eyes, longing for something real and uncomplicated, something that couldn't be bought or negotiated or strategically planned. But the moment passed, and Victoria's expression hardened again. 48 hours, she repeated, and walked out into the gray Portland afternoon, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than words. Would you take the $5 million? Let us know in the comments. The 48-hour pledge, the silence following Victoria's departure was deafening. Evelyn stood frozen by the window, watching the black sedan disappear down her tree-lined street, while Landon rocked Theo, murmuring soft, reassuring words to his son, who had picked up on the room's tension. "She's not lying," Evelyn said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "Those patents. My entire security framework is built on technology her father's company developed. If she pulls those licenses, your company would be finished." Landon's voice was grim with understanding. Evelyn nodded, sinking onto the sofa as the full weight of Victoria's threats settled over her. 5 years of work, 12 employees who depend on their jobs, clients who trust me to protect their data. She laughed bitterly. All destroyed because I fell in love with the wrong man and had his baby. Don't say that. Landon placed Theo in his playpen and sat beside her. Don't you dare say loving me was a mistake, or that Theo was a mistake. He wasn't. Look where it's gotten us. The tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. You're trapped in an engagement with a woman who is willing to destroy innocent people to get what she wants. And I'm about to lose everything I've built because I was stupid enough to hope for 5 minutes that we could have a normal family. Landon reached for her hands, but she pulled away, standing up and pacing to the other side of the room. Physical distance felt safer than the comfort he offered. Maybe Victoria is right, Evelyn continued, her voice growing stronger with resolve. Maybe this is about nostalgia and convenience. Maybe I should take her money and go back to Colorado. Start over somewhere she can't touch me. You don't mean that. I do. Evelyn turned to face him, eyes blazing with a mix of anger and heartbreak. What's the alternative, Landon? You break your engagement, lose your company, and we all end up ruined and bitter. At least if I take the money, Theo will be financially secure. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for my mistakes. Landon stood up too, his jaw set with determination. There has to be another way. What way? You said breaking the engagement would destroy everything you've built. Your investors, your employees, your innovations. It all depends on Steel Industries' backing. Landon went quiet for a long moment, staring out at the gray Portland sky. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful, almost calculating. What if it doesn't? What do you mean? What if there's a way to separate my companies from Steel Industries without destroying them? He turned to her, and she could practically see his brilliant mind working through the possibilities. Victoria said the board expects the merger, but what if I can give them something better? Like what? Like independence, like growth that doesn't depend on her father's money or influence. His excitement was building, the way it used to when he stumbled upon a breakthrough solution. I've been so focused on playing by their rules, on maintaining relationships and keeping investors happy, that I forgot what made me successful in the first place. Taking risks, building something from nothing, creating value instead of just moving money around. He moved to his laptop bag and pulled out his phone, already scrolling through contacts. I need to make some calls. Landon, wait. Evelyn's voice stopped him. Even if you could somehow disentangle your business from Victoria's, what about us? What about Theo? He looked up from his phone, his green eyes intense with emotion. What about you? This isn't just about business deals and mergers. This is about real life, about what happens after the lawyers and accountants finish their work. She gestured to Theo, who was stacking blocks contentedly in his playpen. He's not a problem to be solved or a contract to be negotiated. He's a little boy who needs stability and consistency and love. Don't forget love. Love isn't enough. The words came out harsher than she intended, but they had to be said. I loved you before, and we still fell apart. We still hurt each other. What makes you think this time will be any different? Landon set his phone aside and crossed the room to her, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Because we're different people now. Because we've both learned what it means to lose something precious. Because now we have Theo. And he deserves parents who will fight for their family instead of running away from it. I'm not running away. Yes, you are. His voice was gentle but firm. You're so afraid of being hurt again that you're willing to accept Victoria's threats rather than fight for what we could have if together. Evelyn felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we put Theo through the chaos of blending our lives and then realize we're still the same incompatible people we were before? Then we figure it out. Together. Landon reached out tentatively, and this time she didn't pull away when he took her hands. Evelyn, I know I hurt you before. I know I chose my ambitions over our relationship, and I have regretted that choice every single day for the past 2.5 years. Words are easy, then let me show you with actions. He squeezed her hands gently. Give me 48 hours. That's all I ask. 48 hours to prove that I can protect you and Theo, that I can untangle the mess I've made, and that I am ready to put our family first. And if you can't, then I will go with you to Victoria's lawyers. I will ensure you get everything you need to start over somewhere safe. And I will agree to whatever visitation arrangement you think is best for Theo. The offer was more generous than she had expected. More painful, too, because it meant he was willing to lose them, if it meant protecting them. Theo's babbling from his playpen broke the heavy moment. He was holding up a wooden train, offering it to them, with the generous spirit only children possessed. The simple gesture reminded them both of what they were really fighting for. 48 hours, Evelyn said finally. Relief flooded Landon's features. Thank you, but I have conditions. Name them. First, no empty promises. If you say you can do something, you better be absolutely sure you can deliver. I won't have Theo getting his hopes up only to be let down later. Agreed? Agreed. Second, if this doesn't work, if Victoria destroys my company, or your board revolts, or any of a dozen other things go wrong, we don't blame each other. We focus on what's best for Theo, and we move forward as co-parents. Nothing else. The last condition clearly pained him, but he nodded. Understood. And third, she hesitated, then forced herself to continue. If we're going to try this, if we're really going to see if we can be a family, then we do it honestly. No more walls. No more protecting ourselves from getting hurt. We're either all in, or we're not in at all. All in, Landon said without hesitation. I am completely, totally all in. The conviction in his voice made her chest tighten with hope and terror in equal measure. She was about to gamble everything, her heart, her future, Theo's stability, on a man who had already broken her trust once. But as she looked at Theo playing contentedly with the trains his father had brought him, she realized some risks were worth taking. Okay, she whispered. 48 hours. Landon's smile was brilliant and grateful, and tinged with the kind of determination that had built empires. I won't let either of you down, as he pulled out his phone and began making the calls that would either save or destroy everything they had worked for. Evelyn couldn't help thinking that 48 hours had never felt simultaneously so long and so impossibly short. Outside, storm clouds were gathering over Portland, and she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever came next would change all of their lives forever. The war room and the notice, 24 hours into Landon's 48-hour pledge, Evelyn's townhouse had transformed into a war room. Her dining table was covered in laptops, legal documents, and the remains of takeout containers. Landon hadn't left since yesterday afternoon, working through the night while Theo napped and played around them, oblivious to the battle being waged for his future. Marcus just confirmed it, Landon said, hanging up his third conference call of the morning. Chan Industries is willing to back out of their exclusivity agreement with Steele if we can offer them better terms on the AI integration project. Evelyn looked up from her own laptop, where she had been reviewing her company's contracts. That's the third investor you've flipped in 12 hours. Victoria is going to notice the pattern soon. She already has. Landon's phone buzzed with another call. That's probably her now. Instead of answering, he let it go to voicemail and turned back to the spreadsheet they had been building. The last day had revealed just how extensively Steel Industries had woven itself into Landon's business empire, but it had also shown that most of those connections were based on convenience rather than necessity. The Yamamoto deal is the key, he continued, highlighting a row of numbers. If I can secure their backing independently, I can buy out Steel's stake in the holding company. It will cost me almost everything I have in liquid assets, but it's doable. And then what? Evelyn asked, though she was starting to see the bigger picture. You'll be free of Victoria, but you'll also be broke. Not broke, just starting over. His smile was rueful but determined. I built something from nothing once. I can do it again. Theo chose that moment to toddle over, clutching his wooden train and babbling what sounded like an elaborate story about its adventures. Landon automatically reached down to scoop him up, settling his son on his lap while he continued to work. The easy domesticity of the gesture made Evelyn's heart squeeze. Over the last 24 hours, she had watched Landon integrate himself seamlessly into their routine, helping with meals, reading bedtime stories, even handling a midnight diaper change when Theo had woken up fussy. He approached fatherhood the same way he approached business, with total focus and an instinct for what needed to be done. There's something else, she said, closing her laptop and turning to face him fully. I've been looking into those patents Victoria threatened me with. They aren't as ironclad as she made them sound. The original licensing agreements include clauses that would allow me to negotiate alternative arrangements if Steel Industries attempts to terminate without cause. Landon's eyes sharpened with interest. Meaning? Meaning her threats might be bluster. Expensive, complicated bluster that would keep us tied up in court for months, but not the immediate death sentence that she made it out to be. That's brilliant. Landon shifted Theo to his other knee, his excitement growing. If we can neutralize her leverage over your company while I extract myself from Steel Industries, we might actually have a shot at this. Evelyn finished the thought, feeling a cautious optimism she had been afraid to acknowledge. Their planning was interrupted by the doorbell. Through the front window, they could see a delivery truck parked outside, and Evelyn's stomach dropped as she realized what it might be. I'll get it, Landon said. But she was already moving toward the door. The delivery required a signature, and the return address confirmed her fears. Steel Industries' legal department. The envelope was thick, official, and ominous. Let me see, Landon said as she closed the door. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter, demanding Evelyn's company stop using any technology covered by the steel patents within 72 hours or face immediate legal action. But more disturbing was the second document, a motion for emergency custody evaluation, claiming Evelyn was an unfit mother who was exposing her child to unstable and potentially dangerous situations. She's going after Theo, Evelyn whispered, the paper shaking in her hands. She's actually trying to take my son. Landon's face went white as he read over her shoulder. This is insane. She can't seriously think a judge would. She doesn't have to win, Evelyn interrupted. The full scope of Victoria's strategy was becoming clear. She just has to tie me up in legal proceedings long enough to destroy my business and drain my resources. And if she can plant enough doubt about my parenting... Theo, sensing the shift in mood, started to whimper in Landon's arms. Automatically, both parents moved to comfort him, but the legal documents lay like poison between them. We need a lawyer, Landon said. The best family attorney in Portland. With what money? Evelyn's voice was bitter. I've already spent most of my savings trying to keep the company afloat during the lean season. And if she successfully pulls those patents, then we use my money. Landon, if you liquidate everything to buy out Steel Industries, you won't have money for lawyers either. They stared at each other across the dining table, the weight of impossible choices settling over them like a shroud. Outside, the Portland rain began to fall, tapping against the windows with increasing intensity. Landon's phone rang. This time, he answered it. Mitchell. Even from across the room, Evelyn could hear Victoria's voice, sharp and satisfied. I trust you've received my gifts by now. Victoria, this has gone too far. Going after Evelyn's parental rights? That's not protecting your interests. That's vindictive. It's strategic. Ms. Harper clearly cannot provide a stable environment for that child while she's embroiled in legal battles and financial ruin. I'm simply ensuring the child's welfare is protected. By trying to take him away from his mother? By making sure he gets placed in, what? Foster care? By ensuring he is placed in an appropriate placement while the adults sort out their messy personal lives. Victoria's voice was cold, professional. Of course, all of this unpleasantness could be avoided if Ms. Harper were to reconsider my original offer. I might even be persuaded to increase it to $7 million, given the additional complications. Evelyn snatched the phone from Landon's hand before he could respond. This is Evelyn. Ah, the woman herself. I trust you're starting to understand the situation more clearly. What I understand is that you're willing to traumatize an innocent child to get what you want. What kind of person does that? The kind who understands that sometimes short-term discomfort prevents long-term disaster. Victoria's tone remained infuriatingly calm. Your son will recover from a temporary disruption. Landon's companies might not recover from the chaos you're bringing into his life. You're wrong about him. Evelyn looked at Landon, who was watching intently while keeping Theo distracted with his toy train. He's stronger than you think, and he loves his son more than any business deal. Love. Victoria laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. How wonderfully naive. Love doesn't pay employee salaries or fund research and development. Love doesn't protect people from hostile takeovers or market crashes. No. But it gives you something worth protecting those things for. The line went silent for a long moment. When Victoria spoke again, her voice carried a strange note Evelyn couldn't quite identify. You really believe that, don't you? You really think love conquers all? That love makes the struggle worth it? Another, longer pause. This time, in the background, Evelyn could hear the sounds of an expensive restaurant. Clinking glasses and polite conversation. 24 hours, Victoria said finally. That's how long you have before I file additional motions that will make today's paperwork look gentle. 24 hours to take the money and walk away. Or I will systematically destroy everything you've built and everyone you care about. The line clicked dead. Evelyn set the phone down with hands that shook only slightly. Across the room, Landon was watching her with a mixture of admiration and concern. 24 hours, she told him. Then we'd better get to work. He stood up, placing Theo in his playpen with practiced ease. Then he headed for his laptop, with the intense focus she remembered from their college days. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he pulled up files, ran calculations, sent messages to contacts across the globe. What are you doing? I'm calling in every favor I've ever earned, he said without looking up. Victoria thinks she holds all the cards, but she's forgotten something important. What's that? Landon looked up then, his green eyes bright with determination and something that looked like love. She's forgotten that some things are worth losing everything for. As the Portland afternoon darkened into evening, they worked side by side, racing against Victoria's countdown, and fighting for a future that seemed to slip further away with every passing hour. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Evelyn allowed herself to hope that love might actually be enough, if they were brave enough to bet everything on it. The courtroom showdown. The Multnomah County Courthouse in downtown Portland buzzed with Monday morning activity as Evelyn walked through the metal detectors, Theo's heavy car seat in one hand and a worn leather briefcase in the other. She had barely slept in the 18 hours since Victoria's final ultimatum, but her mind was sharp with purpose. Landon walked beside her, his usually perfect appearance showing signs of their weekend marathon. Tie slightly askew, shadows under his eyes. But his jaw set with unwavering determination. "Mrs. Harper?" A woman in a sharp navy suit approached them in the lobby. "I'm Jennifer Chan, your attorney. We spoke on the phone last night." Evelyn shook the lawyer's hand, grateful that Landon's contacts had managed to secure them representation on such short notice. Jennifer Chan had a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless in family court, qualities they desperately needed. "The emergency hearing is in 20 minutes, Jennifer continued as they headed for the elevators. "I've reviewed all the documents Victoria Steele filed, and I have to be honest, she's playing dirty, but she's playing smart. The allegations about instability and endangerment are carefully worded to sound serious without being easily disprovable." "What are our chances?" Landon asked. "Better than they were yesterday, thanks to the materials you provided." Jennifer smiled grimly. "Financial records showing Mrs. Harper's business stability, character references from clients and colleagues, medical records proving excellent care for Theo. It all helps. But the real game changer is what you uncovered about Ms. Steele's motivations." They stepped out of the elevator on the 3rd floor, where the hallways hummed with the business of family court. Evelyn spotted Victoria near the courtroom entrance, surrounded by what looked like an army of expensive lawyers. She looked immaculate as always, her blonde hair in a perfect chignon, her cream-colored suit clearly bespoke. When their eyes met across the hall, Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "Remember," Jennifer murmured as they approached the courtroom doors, "this is about Theo's best interests. Whatever she throws at you in there, stay calm and focus on being the mother you are. Loving, capable, and protective." Inside the courtroom, Theo sat quietly in his car seat, playing with his wooden train and occasionally babbling to himself. His innocent presence seemed to highlight the absurdity of the proceedings. How could anyone look at this happy, healthy child and claim his mother was unfit? Judge Patricia Hoffman took the bench promptly at 9 a.m. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that suggested she had seen every family court drama imaginable. "This is an emergency hearing regarding the petition filed by Victoria Steele, requesting temporary custody evaluation for the minor child, Theodore Harper," Judge Hoffman announced. "Ms. Steele, your counsel may proceed." Victoria's lead attorney, a man whose suit probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, stood up and launched into a carefully crafted argument about Evelyn's alleged instability. He painted a picture of a single mother overwhelmed by business pressures, making reckless decisions that exposed her child to dangerous situations. Specifically, the volatile relationship with Landon Mitchell. "Your Honor," the lawyer intoned, "Ms. Harper has dragged this innocent child into the middle of a messy corporate dispute involving millions of dollars and powerful interests. The child has been present during heated confrontations and has been used as a pawn in Ms. Harper's attempts to manipulate Mr. Mitchell." Evelyn felt anger rising in her chest, but Jennifer's steady hand on her arm reminded her to keep her composure. "Furthermore," the lawyer said, pulling out a tablet, "we have evidence that Ms. Harper's business is in severe financial peril due to patent violations. She faces lawsuits that could result in bankruptcy, leaving her unable to provide adequate care for the child." "Objection." Jennifer stood up smoothly. "The financial claims are speculative and irrelevant to Ms. Harper's parenting abilities." "Sustained," ruled Judge Hoffman. "Stick to facts relevant to the child's immediate welfare, counselor." When it was Jennifer's turn, she stood with quiet confidence. "Your Honor, this case isn't about child welfare. It's about a woman weaponizing the legal system in a personal dispute. Victoria Steele is engaged to marry Mr. Mitchell, the father of Miss Harper's child, and she views this family as a threat to her financial interests." Jennifer gestured toward Evelyn and Theo. "Look at this child, Your Honor. He is clearly healthy, happy, and well cared for. His mother has provided excellent medical care, educational opportunities, and a stable, loving home. The only instability in his life has been introduced by Ms. Steele's attempts to separate him from his family. Your Honor, Jennifer continued, we have evidence that Ms. Steele offered Ms. Harper $7 million to relocate and limit the father's contact with his son. This isn't about protecting a child, it's about buying one. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Victoria's perfectly composed mask flickered for just a moment. Do you have proof of this alleged offer? Judge Hoffman asked. Jennifer nodded. We have recorded phone conversations and documented threats, but more importantly, we have testimony from the father himself regarding Ms. Steele's motivations. Landon stood as he was called to the witness stand, his presence commanding even in the sterile courtroom environment. Under Jennifer's questioning, he methodically dismantled Victoria's narrative, explaining how she had threatened Evelyn's business as leverage, how she had tried to use money to separate him from his son, and how her actions were motivated by protecting a business merger rather than child welfare. Mr. Mitchell, Jennifer asked in her closing, has Mrs. Harper ever done anything to endanger your son's well-being? Never, Landon said firmly. Evelyn is an exceptional mother. She is patient, dedicated, and incredibly protective of Theo. Every decision she makes is based on what is best for him. And what is your intention regarding your relationship with your son? To be his father in every way that matters, to support him and his mother, to be present for every milestone, and to provide the stable family environment he deserves, even if that means sacrificing my business relationship with Ms. Steele. Landon looked directly at Victoria as he answered. Especially if it means that. Victoria's lawyer tried to damage Landon's credibility during cross-examination, but his answers remained firm and consistent. When Evelyn took the stand, she spoke with quiet dignity about building her business while raising Theo alone, about the challenges and rewards of single motherhood, and about her hopes for Theo's future. Ms. Harper, Victoria's lawyer asked during his cross-examination, isn't it true that your relationship with Mr. Mitchell ended badly years ago due to irreconcilable differences? Yes, Evelyn admitted. But we are different people now. We've both matured and Don't you think bringing the instability of a rekindled romance into your child's life poses risks? Evelyn thought carefully before answering. The only instability my son has faced recently has come from people who are trying to keep his family apart. Love doesn't create instability, counselor. It creates security. When all testimony was complete, Judge Hoffman called a brief recess to review the evidence. Evelyn sat in the hallway, holding Theo as he napped against her shoulder, seeking comfort in his warm weight and peaceful breathing. You did great in there, Landon said quietly, sitting beside her on the uncomfortable wooden bench. Did we do enough? Before he could answer, Victoria approached them. Her legal team hung back, giving her space for what looked like a private conversation. Ms. Harper, she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp confidence. Can I speak to you privately? Evelyn looked at Landon, who nodded reluctantly. They moved to a quiet alcove near the windows, where Victoria stood for a long moment just watching Theo sleep. He is beautiful, she said finally. Peaceful. What do you want, Victoria? Victoria stood in silence for another moment, then surprised Evelyn by sitting on the bench next to her. Without her army of lawyers and power suits as armor, she looked smaller, more human. I want to know what it feels like, Victoria said softly. What feels like? To love someone more than your own ambitions. To look at a child and know you would give up everything to protect them. Victoria's voice was almost wistful. I've spent my whole life building walls, making strategic alliances, protecting my interests. I thought love was just another kind of weakness. Evelyn studied the other woman's profile, seeing something vulnerable beneath the polished surface. It's not weakness. It's the opposite. I know that now. Victoria turned to look at her directly. Watching Landon these past few days, seeing how he changed the moment he held your son, I realized I've never inspired that kind of devotion in anyone. and I've never felt it myself. Victoria, I'm withdrawing the custody petition, Victoria said abruptly. And the patent threats. Everything. Evelyn felt her breath hitch. Why? Victoria's smile was sad, but genuine. Because some things are more important than winning. And because that little boy deserves parents who love him more than they fear losing. When they returned to the courtroom, Victoria's lawyer stood to address the judge. Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw all petitions and dismiss this case. She has reconsidered the evidence and concluded that the child's best interests are served by remaining with his mother. Judge Hoffman looked skeptical but pleased. Very well. Case dismissed. Ms. Harper, your son remains in your custody. Walking out of the courthouse an hour later, Evelyn felt like she could breathe fully for the first time in days. Theo was awake now, babbling happily and reaching for the pigeons strutting on the courthouse steps. I can't believe it's over, she said. It's not over, Landon corrected, taking her free hand in his. It's just beginning. They walked toward his car, their future uncertain, but theirs to decide. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Building a life 3 weeks after the courtroom victory, Evelyn's townhouse had returned to its quiet rhythm. But now, everything felt different. The dining table was no longer covered in legal documents and crisis management plans. Instead, it held the remains of a family breakfast, Theo's colorful blocks, and Landon's laptop, where he had been working remotely more often than not. The Yamamoto deal closed this morning, Landon announced, looking up from his screen with a tired but satisfied smile. I am officially free of Steel Industries. Evelyn paused in loading the dishwasher, a plate halfway to its destination. Free, but broke? Free and starting over, he corrected, closing the laptop and moving to help her with the dishes. But with the best possible motivation. Theo, who had been happily destroying a tower of blocks, suddenly pulled himself up and toddled toward Landon with arms outstretched. Over the last 3 weeks, her son had developed a distinct preference for his father's company, often crying when Landon left for meetings and lighting up like the sun when he returned. "Da-da, da-da!" Theo babbled, the syllables getting closer to a real word every day. I think he's trying to say daddy, Evelyn observed, watching Landon scoop up his son with the natural ease that still surprised her. We've been practicing, Landon admitted, grinning a smile that made him look boyish. Along with mama, more, and train. The domestic scene was interrupted by Evelyn's phone. The caller ID made her stomach clench reflexively, even though she knew Victoria was no longer a threat. It's her, she said. Landon's expression went serious. Answer it. Evelyn swiped to accept. Hello? Evelyn. Victoria's voice was different, softer, less polished. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. It's fine. What can I do for you? I wanted to let you know I'm moving to London. There's a position with a tech firm there that, well, it's a fresh start, away from everything that's happened here. Evelyn felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. That sounds like a good opportunity. It is. And I wanted to apologize properly this time. What I did was unforgivable, using a child as a weapon in my own insecurities. Victoria's voice wavered slightly. You were right, you know. Love makes the struggle worth it. I just never learned how to fight for anything real. Victoria, I've also transferred the patent licenses to your company directly, free and clear. Consider it my contribution to Theo's college fund. Evelyn almost dropped the phone. Those patents were worth millions. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Some debts can't be paid with money, but this is a start. Victoria paused. Take care of them, Evelyn. Take care of each other. The line went dead, and Evelyn stared at her phone for a long moment. When she looked up, Landon was watching her with curious concern. She transferred the patents to my company, Evelyn said, still processing the magnitude of the gesture. Just like that. Guilt is a powerful motivator, Landon said quietly. But so is recognizing something genuine when you see it. Theo chose that moment to try and wiggle out of Landon's arms, squirming toward his toy box with single-minded determination. As Landon set him down, their son immediately began his favorite game of emptying every container he could reach. "I've been thinking," Evelyn said, sitting on the sofa and watching her son's industrious destruction. "About what happens next. With us, I mean." Landon joined her on the sofa, close enough that she could smell his cologne and feel the warmth radiating from his body. "And what conclusion did you reach?" "Conclusion? That I'm terrified," she said honestly. "This feels too good to be true. Too easy, after everything we've been through." "Easy?" Landon laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Evelyn, the last month has been the hardest of my life, facing the possibility of losing you and Theo again, dismantling everything I'd built, starting from scratch." None of that was easy. "But it was right," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "When you walked away from Victoria, when you chose us over your empire, that was when I knew this was real." Landon reached for her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers in a gesture that felt both familiar and brand new. "I should have made that choice years ago. I should have fought for us instead of letting my pride and ambition get in the way. We weren't ready then. I wasn't ready." Evelyn squeezed his hand. "I was so focused on proving I could do everything alone that I couldn't accept help, even from someone who loved me. And now?" She looked around the room, at Theo playing happily with the blocks his father had bought him, at the laptop where Landon had been building a new company while helping her navigate the patent transfer, at the life they were slowly, carefully building together. "Now I know that being strong enough to do it all alone doesn't mean I have to." Theo suddenly appeared at Evelyn's knees, holding up his wooden train with an expression that clearly demanded attention. She pulled him up onto the sofa between them, and he immediately began showing them the intricate details of his favorite toy. His babbling taking on the cadence of a very serious explanation. "He's going to be brilliant," Landon said to his son with obvious pride and awe. "He gets that from you." "The brilliance, maybe. But the determination? And the independence? That's all you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Theo navigate the complex engineering of making his train perform impossible loops in the air. The afternoon sun, filtering through the windows, caught the reddish highlights in their son's hair and made his green eyes sparkle with mischief. "I want more," Evelyn said suddenly, then blushed at how that sounded. "I mean, more kids. Someday. When we're married," Landon finished softly. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and hope, and the weight of everything they had almost lost. "Is that a proposal?" she asked, heart racing despite her attempt at lightness. "Not yet." Landon's smile was warm and patient. "When I propose to you properly, it won't be on a sofa covered in Cheerios and toy trains. It will be somewhere beautiful, with a ring I've spent weeks choosing, and words I've been practicing for months." "I don't need beautiful places or perfect words," Evelyn said, though her chest was tight with emotion at the thought that he was already planning their engagement. "I just need you. You have me. You've always had me, even when I was too stupid to admit it." He leaned in to kiss her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her eyes water. "But when I ask you to marry me, I want to do it right. I want to give you the proposal you deserve, the wedding you dream of, the life we should have had all along." Theo, apparently deciding their conversation was getting too serious, started banging his train against the coffee table in a rhythm that was simultaneously musical and chaotic. The sound filled the room with joy and normalcy, and the promise of many such moments to come. "There is one thing I want to ask you now, though," Landon said, raising his voice slightly over Theo's percussion concert. "What's that?" "Move in with me." "No, here. I know this is your home, and I don't want to disrupt Theo's routine. But let me find us a house, something big enough for all of us, with a yard for him to play in, and an office where you can work, and space to grow. Evelyn felt her breath hitch. It was a practical suggestion, sensible even, but it felt like the most romantic thing anyone had ever offered her. Space to grow, she repeated. For the company, for our family, for whatever comes next. Landon's green eyes were serious and hopeful. I know it's fast, but Evelyn, we've already wasted so much time. I don't want to waste another day living apart when we could be building something together. Theo suddenly stood up on the sofa and launched himself at Landon with the fearless trust only toddlers possessed. Landon caught him easily, his son's delighted laughter filling the room as they tumbled backward into an impromptu tickle fight. Watching them together, her past and her future, the love she had lost and found again, Evelyn felt something settle in her chest. This was what she had been fighting for without knowing it. What she had been building toward through every hard choice and sleepless night. Yes, she said. And they both looked at her with matching expressions of curious hope. Yes to what? Landon asked, sitting Theo more securely in his lap. Yes to the house. Yes to building something together. Yes to space to grow. She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. Yes to everything. Landon's grin was bright and grateful, and full of promises for the future. Theo clapped his hands, as if he understood the momentousness of the occasion, his joyful babbling providing the perfect soundtrack to their new beginning. The proposal and the future. 6 months later, the house in the Laurelhurst neighborhood of Portland was everything Landon had promised, and more. The craftsman-style home sat on a tree-lined street where neighbors actually knew each other's names, with a wraparound porch perfect for morning coffee, and a backyard where Theo could chase butterflies and learn to throw a ball. Evelyn's home office occupied the sunroom overlooking the garden, where she could watch her son play while she worked on her rapidly expanding cybersecurity contracts. It had taken 3 months to find the perfect house, and another 2 to make it feel like home. But now, as Evelyn stood in the kitchen making Theo's breakfast while coffee brewed and NPR provided gentle background commentary, she couldn't imagine living anywhere else. "Dada!" Theo shouted from his high chair, the word clear and unmistakable now. "Dada! Dada!" "I hear you, buddy." Landon's voice came from the hallway, followed by the sound of his footsteps on the hardwood stairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair still damp from the shower and tie hanging loose around his neck. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, dropping a kiss on Evelyn's forehead before moving to ruffle Theo's hair. Their son, now 26 months old and full of opinions, immediately launched into telling his father a detailed account of his morning activities in the rapid-fire toddler speech that somehow made perfect sense to both parents. "He says the trucks outside woke him up, but he wasn't scared because he knew we were here," Evelyn translated, setting Theo's bowl of cut strawberries on his tray. "Is that right?" Landon asked Theo seriously. "And what else happened this morning?" "Mama sing," Theo announced proudly. Then launched into his own off-key version of the nursery rhyme Evelyn had been humming while she got dressed. "Your mama has a beautiful voice," Landon agreed, his eyes warm as they met Evelyn's across the kitchen. Just like everything else about her, the easy intimacy of the moment still caught Evelyn by surprise sometimes. 6 months of shared mornings and bedtime routines, of navigating toddler tantrums and celebrating first words, of building both a business and a relationship from the ground up, had created a foundation stronger than she had ever imagined possible. "I have to drive up to Seattle today," Landon said, straightening his tie. "Final meeting with the investors on the AI security integration. We should know by tonight if Chan Industries is moving forward with the full partnership." "That's huge," Evelyn said, feeling the familiar flutter of excitement and pride. Landon's new company had grown faster than anyone expected, built on innovation and integrity rather than financial manipulation. "You've worked so hard for this." "We've worked hard for this," he corrected. Your security protocols are what made the whole project feasible. It was true. Their companies had naturally dovetailed over the last few months, complementing each other's strengths and filling in weaknesses. Evelyn's boutique cybersecurity firm provided the specialized expertise Landon's broader tech ventures needed, while his business development skills had helped her expand beyond her most ambitious projections. "Daddy go?" Theo asked with the heartbreakingly sad expression he had perfected for occasions when his father had to travel. "Just for today," Landon promised, crouching down by the high chair. "I'll be back for dinner, and we can work on that puzzle we started yesterday. Pinky promise?" "Promise." Theo extended his tiny pinky finger and hooked it around Landon's much larger one with the solemnity of a sacred vow. 2 hours later, Evelyn was deep in code when her phone rang. The caller ID made her smile. Sarah Martinez, her college roommate and closest friend, calling from Denver. "Please tell me you're sitting down," Sarah said without preamble. "Hello to you too, and yes, I'm sitting. Why?" "Because I just saw the most beautiful engagement ring in the window of Morrison's Jewelers, and the sales assistant told me someone from Portland put a hold on it yesterday, with very specific instructions about sizing and timing." Evelyn's hands froze over her keyboard. "Sarah, Morrison's is the most exclusive jeweler in Denver. Evie, the ring I saw probably cost more than my car, and the sales assistant said the buyer was very particular about the setting. Art Deco vintage, emerald cut diamond, platinum band with tiny accent stones." "How do you know all that?" "Because I pretended to be interested in a similar style and asked very detailed questions." Sarah's voice was smug. "Also, the buyer left specific instructions that it should be ready for pickup by this weekend." Evelyn felt her heart start to race. "This weekend is Theo's 2nd birthday." "Exactly." "Oh my God, Evie. He's going to propose at the birthday party, isn't he? In front of everyone who loves you both." "You don't know that," Evelyn protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe it's for someone else. Maybe you should stop overthinking and start planning what you're going to wear when the man you love asks you to marry him." After Sarah hung up, Evelyn sat staring at her computer screen, seeing none of the code displayed there. The possibility of a proposal had been dancing at the edges of their relationship for months. Subtle hints, significant looks, conversations that seemed to drift toward the topic before veering away into safer territory. But a proposal at Theo's birthday party, surrounded by the people who had become their chosen family. It would be perfect. The day passed in a blur of distracted productivity. Evelyn found herself checking her phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzed, and mentally cataloging the guest list for tomorrow's party. Her parents were flying in from Colorado, Landon's business partner Marcus and his family, various neighbors who had become friends, and Sarah, who had mysteriously decided she needed to visit Portland this weekend. When Landon returned home that evening, he was practically vibrating with excitement. "We got it," he announced the moment he walked through the door. "Full partnership, 18-month development timeline, and complete creative control over the security architecture." "That's amazing." Evelyn hugged him, genuinely thrilled despite her distraction. "I'm so proud of you." "Proud of us," he corrected, spinning her around the kitchen, while Theo clapped and giggled from his play area. "This is going to change everything. We'll be able to expand both companies, hire more people, maybe even open a satellite office in Seattle." He was talking fast, the way he did when his mind was racing through possibilities. But there was something else in his expression, a nervous energy that seemed disproportionate even for this significant business win. "Daddy!" Theo interrupted, toddling over with arms up. "Up!" Landon picked up his son, who immediately began chattering about his own day's adventures. As Evelyn watched them together, Landon listening with total attention to Theo's nonsense story, her son's face shining with the joy of having his father's focus. She felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with loving someone so much it almost hurt. "Tomorrow will be perfect," Landon said suddenly, looking at her over Theo's head. The party, I mean. Everything is going to be perfect. The next morning dawned clear and warm, unusual for October in Portland. Evelyn spent the early hours decorating the backyard with streamers and balloons, while Landon claimed he had last-minute errands to run. Errands that suspiciously kept him out of the house for exactly the amount of time it would take to meet a courier from Denver. Theo helped by chasing balloons, providing commentary on her color choices, and occasionally attempting to climb the ladder she was using to hang decorations. By noon, the house was transformed. The backyard looked like something out of a magazine, with tables covered in cheerful cloths, a bounce house that had required significant negotiation to fit through the side gate, and enough food to feed a small army. Theo, dressed in his special birthday outfit, a button-down shirt and tiny khakis that made him look heartbreakingly grown up, was beside himself with excitement. Guests began arriving at 1 p.m. Evelyn's parents, who had fallen completely in love with both Landon and their grandson over the last 6 months, came bearing gifts that were probably too expensive and definitely too numerous. Marcus and his wife brought their twin daughters, who immediately claimed Theo as their honorary little brother and whisked him away to explore the bounce house. "You look nervous," Sarah observed, appearing at Evelyn's elbow with a knowing grin. "I'm fine," Evelyn lied, smoothing down her carefully chosen dress, a navy wrap dress that brought out her eyes and made her feel both elegant and comfortable. Which is why you've rearranged the appetizer table 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Before Evelyn could respond, Landon appeared at her side, looking unfairly handsome in dark jeans and a white button-down shirt. But there was definitely something different about his energy, a barely contained excitement that made him seem almost electric. "Ladies," he said, kissing Sarah's cheek and then Evelyn's, "everything looks amazing." "Where did you disappear to this morning?" Evelyn asked, picking a piece of lint off his collar just to have an excuse to touch him. His smile was secretive, just picking up a few things. The party unfolded with the beautiful chaos that came with toddlers and extended family. Theo received enough presents to stock a toy store, demolished his dinosaur-themed birthday cake with enthusiastic efficiency, and charmed every adult present with his increasingly sophisticated vocabulary and irrepressible personality. As the afternoon stretched toward evening, Evelyn found herself watching Landon more closely. He seemed to be waiting for something, checking his phone occasionally and scanning the crowd as if looking for a particular moment. "Daddy! Daddy!" Theo shouted, running toward them with chocolate frosting still smeared on his cheek. "Train!" "Play trains in a minute, buddy," Landon said, scooping him up. Then he looked at their gathered friends and family. "Actually, I think this might be the perfect time." Evelyn's heart stopped. This was it. Landon moved to the center of the patio, and gradually conversations quieted as people realized something significant was about to happen. He held Theo, who immediately started playing with his father's collar, oblivious to the attention focused on them. "2 years ago," Landon began, his voice carrying clearly across the yard, "this little guy came into the world, and everything changed. Not just for his incredible mother, but eventually for me too, when I finally got the chance to know him." Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes at the realization that he was including Theo in this moment, making their son part of the proposal rather than an afterthought. "Theo," Landon continued, addressing his son directly, "what do you think about asking your mommy a very important question?" Theo considered this with the gravity of someone much older. "Good question?" he asked. "The best question," Landon confirmed. Then he set Theo down and turned to Evelyn. The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them as Landon reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. As he dropped to one knee, Evelyn heard several people gasp, but all she could focus on was his face, nervous and hopeful and so full of love it took her breath away. "Evelyn Harper," he said, opening the box to reveal the most beautiful ring she had ever seen. Exactly as Sarah had described, vintage and elegant and perfect. "You are the strongest, smartest, most amazing woman I have ever known. You are an incredible mother, a brilliant businesswoman, and the love of my life." Theo, apparently deciding this was some sort of game, toddled over and plopped down next to Landon, mimicking his position on the ground. "You have given me the greatest gift possible in our son, and you have taught me what it means to put family first, to fight for what matters, to build something real and lasting." Landon's voice was steady but emotional. "I want to spend the rest of my life earning the privilege of being your partner, Theo's father, and hopefully, the father of the children we'll have together." "Yes," Evelyn whispered, then louder, "Yes, of course, yes!" The ring slid onto her finger as if it had been made for her, which, given Landon's attention to detail, it probably had been. As he stood up and pulled her into his arms, their friends and family erupted in cheers and applause. "Mama happy," Theo announced, clapping with delight as if he had orchestrated the whole thing. "Very happy," Evelyn confirmed, laughing through her tears as Landon spun her around. When he set her down, they were immediately swarmed with congratulations and hugs and excited chatter about wedding planning. But amidst all the celebration, Evelyn caught Landon's eye and mouthed, "I love you. I love you too," he mouthed back. Then he picked up Theo, who was demanding to see the pretty sparkles on his mother's finger. As the sun set over their backyard, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Evelyn looked around at her chosen family, parents beaming with joy, friends already planning bridal showers, children playing without a care for the adult emotions swirling around them. This was what happiness looked like, she realized. Not a perfect moment captured in amber, but a messy, chaotic, absolutely perfect life built with someone who chose her every single day. "What are you thinking?" Landon asked, appearing at her side with Theo dozing on his shoulder. "Just this. All of this." She gestured around the yard at their life. "A year ago, I never could have imagined we'd be here. A year ago, I was still pretending I didn't need you," Landon said quietly. "Thank God for elevators." Evelyn laughed, remembering that moment that had started it all. Thank God for stubborn toddlers who look exactly like their fathers. They stood together in the gathering dusk, watching their friends and family clean up the remnants of the party, listening to Theo's soft breathing as he finally succumbed to the exhaustion of his big day. Tomorrow, they would start planning a wedding. Next month, they would move Evelyn's company into the expanded office space Landon had secretly been negotiating for. Next year, well, if they were lucky, they might be planning another birthday party for another little Mitchell. But tonight, they were simply an imperfect, messy, absolutely complete family. 3 years later, the morning sun filtered through the windows of their expanded home office, where Evelyn was nursing 6-month-old Emma while reviewing quarterly reports on her laptop. The baby's tiny fingers curled around her mother's thumb as she fed, her green eyes, identical to her father's and big brother's, wide and alert as she took in the world around her. "Mama, Emma hungry again?" 5-year-old Theo asked from his art table in the corner, where he was creating what he called important business drawings, with the serious concentration he applied to everything. "She's growing fast," Evelyn said, adjusting Emma's position. "Just like you did." Theo nodded wisely, then went back to his artwork. At 5, he was a perfect blend of both parents, Landon's analytical mind wrapped in Evelyn's determined spirit, with a creativity and kindness that was uniquely his own. He spoke in full sentences, asked questions that sometimes stumped the adults around him, and had appointed himself Emma's official protector and entertainment committee. The sound of footsteps on the stairs announced Landon's arrival, and Emma immediately turned her head toward the sound, a milk-drunk smile spreading across her face despite being mid-meal. "Good morning, my beautiful girls," Landon said, dropping a kiss on Evelyn's head before gently stroking Emma's cheek. "And good morning to my favorite artist." "Daddy, look!" Theo held up his drawing, a colorful depiction of their family that included what looked like a dog. "I made us with Max." "Max?" Evelyn asked, raising an eyebrow at her husband. "We may have discussed the possibility of a family pet," Landon admitted, with the sheepish grin that still made her heart flutter. "Theo has been very persuasive in his arguments regarding responsibility and companionship." "Very persuasive." Theo nodded solemnly. Evelyn laughed, shifting Emma to her shoulder to burp her. "Well, I suppose we have the yard for it. And the house feels plenty big enough since the renovation." The renovation had been necessary when Emma arrived, expanding their already comfortable home to include a proper nursery, a larger home office that could accommodate both their growing businesses, and a playroom that could contain Theo's expanding collection of trains, blocks, and books. "Speaking of business," Landon said, settling into his own desk chair, "the Portland expansion is officially complete. We'll be able to hire 12 more developers and move the entire cybersecurity division into the new building by next month." "That's incredible." Evelyn felt the familiar surge of pride and excitement. Their companies had grown beyond their wildest projections, becoming one of the Pacific Northwest's most innovative tech partnerships. What had started as separate businesses had evolved into an integrated operation that complemented their personal partnership perfectly. "And," Landon continued, his voice taking on a particular tone Evelyn had learned to recognize, "Chan Industries wants to discuss expanding the partnership internationally. They're talking about offices in Tokyo and London." "That would mean travel," Evelyn said carefully. "Not much, and never for more than a few days at a time. And only if we both agree it's right for our family." Landon's priorities had shifted permanently 3 years ago when Theo called him Daddy for the first time. Business success mattered, but it would never again come at the expense of the people he loved. Emma finished her meal and immediately started the baby version of demanding attention from her father. Landon reached for her with the practiced ease of a man who had learned that childcare was just another skill to master, settling her against his chest, where she promptly grabbed a fistful of his shirt and tried to eat it. "Remember when we used to think we were busy before Emma?" Evelyn asked, watching her husband handle their daughter with the same focused attention he brought to million-dollar negotiations. "I remember thinking I knew what love was before I met you," Landon replied. "Then I thought I understood it completely when I held Theo for the first time. And then Emma came along and somehow made it all even bigger." Theo looked up from his drawing. "Love gets bigger when families grow," he announced with the wisdom of someone who had recently become a big brother. "Like balloons." "Exactly like balloons," Evelyn agreed, marveling at how her 5-year-old could distill complex emotions into perfect metaphors. The morning routine continued around them, Landon taking calls from the London office while bouncing Emma, Theo providing colorful commentary on everything from the weather to the neighbor's garden, Evelyn managing client emails while mentally planning dinner and wondering if they had enough diapers to last the day. It was beautiful, chaotic, and normal. "Oh," Landon said suddenly, "I almost forgot. We got an invite yesterday." "To what?" "Victoria's wedding. She's marrying a British tech executive she met in London. The invitation says she's found someone who appreciates both ambition and authenticity, whatever that means." Evelyn felt a warm surprise at the news. Over the last 3 years, Victoria had sent occasional emails, updates on her life in London, congratulations on Emma's birth, even a beautiful hand-knitted baby blanket that Evelyn suspected Victoria had made herself during what she described as a therapeutic crafting phase. "That's wonderful," Evelyn said sincerely. "I'm happy for her." "Are you surprised?" "Not really. She just needed to find someone who wanted the same things she did." Evelyn adjusted her position, settling more comfortably in her chair. I think she spent so much time trying to fit into what she thought she should want. She forgot to figure out what she actually wanted. Theo suddenly appeared at the side of Landon's chair, having finished his masterpiece. "Daddy, can we go to the park today? Emma likes the swings." "Emma likes anything that involves motion and attention," Landon said, gently extracting his shirt from his daughter's determined grip. "But yes, we can go to the park after lunch. Can we bring the trains?" "We can bring 2 trains," Evelyn negotiated. "The red engine and 1 car." Theo considered this carefully. The blue car. Blue car is acceptable. As Theo scampered off to begin the complex process of selecting which toys were worthy of a park expedition, Evelyn found herself looking around their shared office space. At the family photos mixed with business awards, the toy box discreetly tucked behind Landon's desk, the baby swing that had become a permanent fixture by the window. 3 years ago, she never could have imagined this version of success. She had thought she wanted independence, professional recognition, the satisfaction of building something entirely her own. She had gotten all of that, but she had also discovered that the best achievements were the ones you shared with people who loved you exactly as you were. "What are you thinking?" Landon asked, following her gaze around the room. "Just how different this is from what I thought I wanted. Better different? Or worse different? Much better different." She smiled at him. This man who had learned to balance laptop and baby with equal skill, who read bedtime stories with the same passion he brought to business pitches, who had somehow figured out how to give her everything she never knew she needed. "Good," he said, standing up and moving toward her with Emma still content against his chest. "Because I have a surprise for you." "Another surprise? Remember, I just had a baby 6 months ago, and I'm still functioning on approximately 3 hours of sleep a night? This is a good surprise, a relaxing surprise." He pulled his phone from his pocket and showed her a confirmation email. "Sarah and Marcus are taking the kids this weekend. All of them. For the whole weekend." "They're taking both kids for a whole weekend?" 48 hours of uninterrupted adult time. We can sleep in, eat hot food, have conversations that don't involve trains or diaper contents. Evelyn felt a flutter of excitement mixed with the immediate maternal panic that came with being separated from her children. "Emma is still nursing. I have a stash, remember? And Sarah raised twins. If anyone can handle our 2, it's her. What about Theo's nap schedule and Emma's bedtime routine? And what if she cries and they can't?" Landon silenced her worries with a kiss that still made her knees weak after all these years. "They will be fine. We've taught them well, and they are resilient little people. Besides, when was the last time we had more than 3 consecutive hours alone?" Evelyn tried to remember and came up blank. Between building businesses and raising babies, their romantic time had been reduced to stolen moments between conference calls and exhausted snuggles after the kids were finally asleep. "What did you have in mind?" she asked. "That little bed and breakfast on the coast you mentioned? The one with the fireplace in the room and the restaurant that serves meals you eat with actual silverware? That sounds—" Evelyn paused as Emma started to fuss, the baby's internal clock signaling it was time for another feed. "That sounds perfect." As if summoned by the prospect of romantic weekend plans, both children suddenly required immediate attention. Theo appeared with a train-related emergency that required both parents to solve, while Emma escalated from fussing to the full-blown wail that meant serious business. The next 20 minutes were a blur of problem-solving, diaper changing, snack providing, and the general chaos that had become the soundtrack of their lives. By the time both children were settled, Theo happily building an elaborate train track in the living room, Emma content with a clean diaper and another feed. Evelyn and Landon looked at each other across the kitchen with the shell-shocked expression of parents everywhere. 48 hours, Landon repeated. 48 hours, Evelyn agreed. But as she looked at their beautiful, messy life, at the toys scattered across the expensive hardwood floors, at the business awards hanging next to toddler artwork, at the man who had learned to change diapers without missing a beat on important phone calls. She realized she wouldn't trade a single moment of the beautiful madness they had created together. "Mama," Theo called from the living room. "Come see the bridge I made." "Coming," she shouted back. Then she looked at Landon with a smile that felt like sunshine. "Ready for another adventure? With you?" He gestured toward the living room, where Theo's chatter mixed with Emma's happy baby sounds. "Always." They walked hand in hand toward their children, toward another day of the perfectly imperfect life they had built from love, determination, and the courage to bet everything on each other. Outside, Portland was waking up to another beautiful morning full of possibilities and challenges, and the promise of everything good that could happen when you chose love over fear, family over everything else, and the beautiful unknown over the safety of what you thought you wanted. Some stories ended with happily ever after. This one was still being written, one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time. In a few years, when Theo and Emma are adults with families of their own, they will look back on these early years as the foundation of everything they understand about love, commitment, and what it means to build something lasting with another person. Their parents' love story, from that first meeting in the elevator to this moment, reading bedtime stories and handling midnight feedings and finding joy in the beautiful chaos of family life, will be the standard by which they measure their own relationships. Because some love stories aren't about perfect moments or dramatic gestures. The best ones are about choosing each other over and over again, through sleepless nights and stressful days, through professional triumphs and parenting failures, through all the ordinary moments that add up to a life worth living. When faced with your own crossroads, between love and ambition, between the safe choice and the leap of faith, between what you thought you wanted and what your heart knows you need, what will you choose?